Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're talking about scams, but not the obvious ones. Not the Nigerian prince emails or the extended car warranty calls. These are the sophisticated ones, the ones that almost worked, the con artists who were inches from getting away with it. We've collected stories about fraud schemes, elaborate lies, and manipulations that unraveled at the last possible moment. Some from the scammers themselves, some from the people who caught them. These are the ones that make you think, if they just stopped one step earlier. Hit like if you've ever almost fallen for something, subscribe for more, and definitely share your own close calls in the comments. Let's get into it.
I investigate insurance fraud for a living. Been doing it 15 years. You develop a sense for when something's off. Got a claim, house fire, total loss, family of 4, asking for $800,000. On paper, everything looked legitimate. Fire marshal report confirmed electrical fire, family had receipts for everything they claimed, photos of belongings, the works. But something bothered me. The photos. They were too comprehensive. Most people have some photos of their stuff, vacations, Christmas, whatever. This family had professional quality photos of every room, every angle, every item, time-stamped 2 weeks before the fire. I started digging, pulled their financials. They were drowning. 3 mortgages, credit cards maxed, facing foreclosure in 60 days. Convenient timing for a fire. Talked to neighbors. Nobody remembered seeing this family much. One neighbor said they thought the house was empty for weeks before the fire. I checked utility records. Water usage dropped to almost 0 3 weeks before the fire. Electricity was minimal, just enough to run a few lights on timers. They'd moved out, taken everything valuable, photographed the house to fake an inventory, then burned it. Brought in arson investigators, found accelerant patterns, multiple points of origin. This wasn't electrical. Confronted the family with evidence. Husband cracked immediately, confessed to the whole thing. Here's what they did. Moved valuables to a storage unit, rented a small apartment under a fake name, photographed everything in the house, waited 3 weeks, then the husband went back, spread gasoline, lit it up. They almost got away with it. If they had used normal photos, if they hadn't made the inventory so perfect. Greed made them thorough. Thoroughness caught them. All 4 adults, husband, wife, and wife's parents who were in on it, got fraud charges. Prison time. Kids went to family services. They destroyed their family trying to save money they didn't have.
Professional quality photos of every item. Timestamped 2 weeks before a random electrical fire. That's the thing about lying. You can't help but over-prepare. And over-preparation looks suspicious. The investigator noticing the photos were too good. That's experience. That's pattern recognition. 3 mortgages, maxed credit cards, facing foreclosure. Desperation makes people stupid, makes them think arson and fraud are solutions. Kids going to family services because all 4 adults decided crime was better than bankruptcy. $800,000. That was the prize. Prison was the outcome. Next story.
I'm a prosecutor specializing in financial crimes. This case still makes me angry. A woman started a charity, called it Hope for Children's Cancer. Professional website, moving testimonials, photos of sick kids. She'd set up at grocery stores, malls, community events, collecting donations, cash and checks. Over 3 years, she raised $340,000. Not a single dollar went to sick children. She spent it on herself. Vacations, designer bags, lease on a Mercedes, plastic surgery. How did we catch her? A local news station did a feel-good story about her charity, featured her on the evening news. One of the parents from her website testimonials saw it, except her daughter wasn't sick, never had cancer. The woman had stolen her photo from social media, made up a story, used this child's face to collect money. The mother contacted us immediately. We started investigating. The testimonials were all fake, stolen photos, made-up stories. The medical facility she claimed to partner with had never heard of her. We got a warrant, searched her house, found everything. Receipts showing exactly where the money went, designer goods with tags still on, trip itineraries to Europe. She kept meticulous records, detailed spreadsheets of every dollar she collected and spent. She documented her own crime perfectly. When we arrested her, she acted shocked, said she was planning to donate the money eventually, that she was just borrowing it. For 3 years. She was borrowing it for 3 years. Trial was straightforward. Evidence was overwhelming. Jury deliberated 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, theft by deception. The judge gave her 12 years. Said using sick children as props for theft was particularly heinous. She cried at sentencing, said she had a shopping addiction, that she couldn't help herself. The judge said that's what therapy is for, not charity fraud. She'll be out eventually, with a felony record, no career, no reputation, nothing. $340,000, 12 years, and she'll never escape what she did.
Using photos of real children, making up cancer diagnoses for a Mercedes and designer bags. That's not desperation. That's sociopathy. I was planning to donate it eventually. Eventually, after Europe and plastic surgery and 3 years of luxury? She kept spreadsheets, documented everything. Criminals always think they're smarter than they are. Shopping addiction. That's the defense. Your Honor, I couldn't help stealing from fake cancer kids. I needed handbags. 12 years. She'll do maybe 8 with good behavior. Still too short for what she did. Moving on.
I'm 58. Widow. My husband died 6 years ago. I was lonely. Met someone online, dating app for older adults. His name was David, or so he said. Profile looked good. Engineer, widower, living overseas for work. Said he was in Ghana building infrastructure. We talked for months, every day, hours on the phone. He seemed genuine, kind, interested in me. Then the requests started. Small, at first. His wallet was stolen in Ghana. Could I wire $500 to help him? He'd pay me back when he returned to the States. I sent it, wanted to help. Then his mother got sick, needed $2,000 for treatment. I sent it. Then project delays, needed $5,000 to cover expenses until his company reimbursed him. I sent it. Over 6 months, I sent $47,000. My entire savings, my husband's life insurance, everything. David was coming home soon. We'd get married. He'd pay everything back. We had plans. Then he needed one more payment, $10,000, for his flight home and to close out the project. I didn't have it. I'd given him everything. I asked my daughter for a loan. She asked why. I told her about David, showed her our conversations, the photos, everything. She reverse image searched his photos. They were stolen from a French model's Instagram, years old. The phone number he called from was a spoofed VoIP line, untraceable. David didn't exist. I'd been talking to a scammer for 6 months, sent them my life savings. My daughter helped me report it. FBI, local police, bank fraud department. They said romance scams are common, rarely recovered. The money goes overseas through multiple accounts, disappears. I lost everything. Had to sell my house, move in with my daughter. The worst part, I still hear his voice in my head, the man I talked to for months, even though he wasn't real. He knew things about me, my fears, my hopes, my loneliness. He used all of it, every vulnerable piece of me, to take everything I had. I'm 64 now, 6 years later. I'll never recover financially, and I'll never trust anyone again.
$47,000. Her entire life savings, her husband's life insurance, everything. For a man who never existed. The cruelty isn't just the money, it's the relationship. 6 months of emotional connection, hours of conversation, plans for a future. All calculated, all manipulation. Every kind word was designed to extract another payment. The daughter reverse image searching the photos. That's what saved her from losing more, but couldn't save what was already gone. She's 64, living with her daughter, will never recover financially, will never trust again. That's what these people do. They don't just steal money, they steal the ability to be vulnerable. Next story.
I'm a real estate agent, 20 years into business. Thought I'd seen everything. Guy comes to me, let's call him Rick. Wants to sell a commercial property, prime downtown location, old warehouse. Listed for $3.2 million, below market value but explained as a quick sale situation. Multiple interested buyers. I'm facilitating showings. Everything seems normal. Then one buyer's attorney does deep title research, finds something odd. The property deed had been transferred to Rick 6 months prior from the previous owner, but the transfer paperwork had irregularities. Attorney digs deeper, finds out the previous owner, elderly man, 82, is in a nursing home, advanced dementia. Attorney visits him, confirms the man never sold his property, doesn't remember anyone named Rick, never signed anything. We pull the transfer documents, signatures are forged, power of attorney paperwork is fake. Rick had found an elderly property owner with dementia, forged documents, transferred the property to himself, was attempting to sell it for $3.2 million. We contacted police immediately. Rick had done this before. 3 other properties, elderly owners with no close family, all with dementia or cognitive decline. He'd successfully sold 2 already, pocketed $5.7 million total. Here's how he'd done it. Found elderly property owners through public records, verified they were isolated, no regular family contact, created fake power of attorney documents, forged signatures, filed them with the county. County clerks process hundreds of documents daily, rarely verify signatures unless someone challenges them. Rick got greedy, tried to flip 4 properties at once. The attorney, noticing the irregularities, caught him. Police arrested him mid-transaction, attempting to sign final sale documents. He's facing multiple counts of fraud, forgery, elder exploitation, looking at 20-plus years. The 2 properties he'd already sold? Legal nightmare. Buyers thought they were legitimate purchases, now their ownership is in question. Rick stole from people who couldn't defend themselves, who didn't even know they were being robbed. all for money he couldn't spend fast enough before getting caught.
Targeting elderly people with dementia? People who can't remember, can't defend themselves, can't even report the crime? That's not clever. That's predatory. The system failed here, too. County clerks processing documents without verification. That's how he got away with it twice. But he got greedy. 4 at once. That's where patterns become visible, where one attorney's diligence catches everything. 20+ years. And the money's gone. Spent. Nothing to show for it but a prison sentence. The buyers, thinking they legitimately purchased property, now stuck in legal hell. Everyone loses except the lawyers. Next one.
I'm an HR director for a tech company. We hire for high-level positions, VP of engineering, senior roles, 6-figure salaries. Got an application for VP of engineering. Resume was impressive. MIT degree, 10 years at top companies, led major projects. Exactly what we needed. References checked out, or seemed to. 3 glowing recommendations from previous supervisors. We flew him in. Interviews went great, technically sound, good personality, confident. Made him an offer, $180,000 salary. He accepted. Standard protocol. We do background verification after offer acceptance, but before start date. Verification company calls. There are problems. MIT has no record of him. His degree doesn't exist. First company on his resume never employed anyone by that name. Second company existed but went out of business 5 years ago. Third company, the most recent, also no record. His entire work history was fabricated. We look into the references. The phone numbers are VoIP lines. The people who answered were actors, paid to give glowing reviews. He'd created an entire false identity, fake degree, fake work history, fake references, professional quality fabrication. How did he think he'd actually do the job? Turns out he'd done this before. At 3 other companies, each time lasting 6 to 9 months before being discovered or leaving before investigation completed. He'd collect salary, work just competently enough not to raise immediate flags, then disappear before deeper questions got asked. We contacted law enforcement. He'd earned roughly $400,000 over 4 years through this scheme. They arrested him at his apartment, found hard drives with templates, fake reference scripts, dozens of fake identities ready to deploy. This was his full-time job, creating fake qualifications, getting hired, collecting salary, moving on. Charged with fraud, identity theft, forgery, he pleaded out 3 years prison. The companies he'd worked for, scrambling to figure out what projects he'd touched, what code he'd written, what decisions he'd made. One of them found he signed off on a security protocol that was now implemented company-wide, written by someone with no actual qualifications. Cost them $2 million to audit and fix everything he'd touched.
He built an entire fake career. Degree from MIT, 10 years of fabricated experience, paid actors as references. And it worked. Multiple times. 4 different companies. $400,000. The audacity of thinking you can just fake being a VP of engineering. And the fact that he pulled it off shows how broken the verification system is. 6 to 9 months per company, just competent enough not to get fired immediately, then vanish before anyone looks too closely. But the damage, the security protocol written by someone unqualified, $2 million to fix. That's what happens when you hire a fiction. The work is real, the consequences are real, the person was never there. Moving on.
My grandmother died at 92. She was wealthy. Real estate, investments, about $4 million total. She had 3 children, my mom and my 2 uncles. Will said everything split 3 ways. Except my Uncle Mark was the executor. He handled the estate. Probate took 2 years. Uncle Mark kept saying there were complications, taxes, legal issues. Be patient. Finally, distributions happened. Each sibling got $400,000. Mom was confused. The estate was worth $4 million. After taxes and legal fees, each share should have been around $1.2 million. We asked Uncle Mark. He showed documents, estate expenses, property maintenance, attorney fees, debt grandmother allegedly had. Numbers barely made sense, but we didn't have expertise to challenge them. 6 months later, Uncle Mark bought a vacation house in Florida, $800,000 cash. Mom got suspicious, hired a forensic accountant to review the estate documents. Accountant found everything. Uncle Mark had siphoned $2.1 million. Here's how. Created fake creditors, companies that didn't exist, submitted invoices to the estate, paid himself. Fake property maintenance contracts, fake legal consultations, fake tax preparation fees, all going to accounts he controlled. Filed false tax returns for the estate, underreported asset values, kept the difference. Sold grandmother's property to an LLC he secretly owned, below market value, then sold it again for full price, pocketed the difference. We sued. Civil case for estate fraud. Uncle Mark's attorney tried to argue the expenses were legitimate. We had documents showing every fake company, every shell corporation, every fabricated invoice. Court ruled in our favor. Uncle Mark had to repay everything, $2.1 million plus interest plus attorney fees. He didn't have it. He'd spent it. The Florida house was mortgaged. The money was gone. Criminal charges followed. Estate theft, fraud, forgery, tax evasion. He pleaded guilty, got 8 years. His kids don't talk to him, his wife divorced him, my mom and other uncle won't speak his name. He destroyed our family for money he couldn't keep. We recovered maybe $600,000 through asset seizure. The rest is gone. We'll never see it. Grandmother trusted him, made him executor, thought he was responsible. He used that trust to steal from his own mother's estate, from his siblings. 8 years in prison, family destroyed, reputation ruined, all for money he spent in 2 years.
$2.1 million. Stolen from his own mother's estate, from his siblings. Executor fraud is particularly cruel. The person you trust most with access to everything, abusing that power completely. Fake companies, false invoices, shell corporations. This wasn't impulse. This was planned, systematic, sophisticated. And he bought a vacation house with cash while his siblings were waiting for their inheritance. That's not just greed. That's contempt. The forensic accountant found everything, every fake transaction, every false document. Paper trails always exist. Criminals always think they're smarter than they are. Family destroyed. Wife divorced. Kids estranged. 8 years in prison, and they still lost $1.5 million forever. Next story.
I work in university research administration. We manage grants, federal funding, private foundations, millions of dollars annually. One of our professors, biochemistry department, was incredibly successful at getting grants. Over 5 years, he'd secured $3.8 million in research funding, published regularly, seemed like a star. Then a junior researcher in his lab quit, filed a complaint with our office, said the research wasn't real, that data was fabricated, that the lab didn't actually do the experiments described in grant proposals. We investigated, quietly, looked at lab records, purchase orders, equipment usage logs. Nothing matched. Grants said they were conducting specific experiments, required specific equipment, specific materials. Equipment was never used, materials were never purchased. Lab notebooks were sparse. Data appeared out of nowhere. We brought in external auditors, federal requirement for large grants. They found systematic fraud. Over 5 years, Professor had submitted fake preliminary data to secure grants, written proposals for experiments he never intended to conduct, fabricated results for progress reports, created false lab notebooks, forged collaborator signatures. Where did the $3.8 million go? His pocket. Grants pay for research expenses, but they also pay professor salaries, graduate student stipends, lab overhead. He'd arranged accounting so huge portions went to his salary, consulting fees for projects that didn't exist, travel to conferences where he presented fake data. He bought property, luxury cars, funded his lifestyle through fake research. The published papers? Data fabrication. Peer reviewers trusted the name university, didn't verify raw data. Federal investigation, FBI involvement. Grant fraud is federal crime. Professor was arrested at his lab, charged with wire fraud, grant fraud, false statements to federal agencies. 31 counts, pleaded guilty to avoid trial. Sentenced to 11 years federal prison, $3.8 million restitution, will never pay it back. University was mortified, had to retract 12 papers, lost credibility. Other professors' grants got extra scrutiny. Junior researcher who reported it, they protected her. She's a professor now, different university, published her own legitimate research. But how many other fake studies are out there? How much science is fiction written for grant money? Nobody knows.
$3.8 million in federal research grants for experiments that never happened, for science that never existed. That's not just fraud. That's undermining the entire scientific process. Published papers, peer-reviewed, accepted, all based on fabricated data. How many other researchers built on his fake findings? How many hours wasted pursuing leads that were never real? The junior researcher who spoke up, that takes courage. Speaking against a tenured professor with millions in funding. 11 years, $3.8 million in restitution he'll never pay, and 12 retracted papers that wasted countless research hours. The question he raises is terrifying. How much published science is fiction? How many grants are funding lies? Next one.
I analyze fraud patterns for a major bank, credit cards, loans, identity theft. We flagged an account. Credit score was perfect, 780. Credit history going back 8 years. Multiple credit cards, all paid on time. Car loan, personal loan. Everything current. Applied for a $75,000 personal loan. Should have been automatic approval. But something was off. The Social Security number. It was valid. Issued, but to someone who died in 1987. Infant death. Never got a driver's license. Never paid taxes. Nothing. Yet this person had 8 years of credit history. Apartment leases, utility bills, bank accounts. Synthetic identity fraud. Someone created a person who never existed using a dead infant's SSN. Here's how they did it. Found SSN of deceased infant, applied for a secured credit card, small amount, got approved. Used that card perfectly for 6 months, paid on time, built initial credit. Applied for another card. Approved. Repeated process. Over 8 years, built an 800-plus credit score for a person who doesn't exist. Then started taking out loans, credit cards with high limits, personal loans, auto loans, never intending to repay, just maxing out and disappearing. We tracked 17 different synthetic identities, all using deceased infants' SSNs, all with perfect credit histories, all applying for loans simultaneously. Total exposure, $1.3 million. Mastermind behind it? A couple in Nevada, running this operation for 10 years. Thousands of synthetic identities, tens of millions in fraud. They'd built a system, software that generated identities, filed fake tax returns to create paper trails, rented mailboxes for addresses, created employment verification lines, an entire fraud infrastructure. FBI arrested them. Federal agents seized servers with data on 2,000-plus synthetic identities still being cultivated. Couple got 15 years each. Restitution in the millions they'll never pay. Banks write off synthetic identity fraud. Can't go after people who don't exist. Cost gets passed to customers through fees and interest rates. These people stole millions. We'll never recover it. The identities keep existing in databases. Credit reports for ghosts.
2,000 synthetic identities, people who never existed, with credit scores, employment history, tax returns, complete fictional lives. And it worked. For 10 years, tens of millions of dollars. Using deceased infants' social security numbers. That's morbid. That's also smart in a horrifying way. The system isn't designed to catch people who don't exist. It's designed to verify people who do. Banks write it off, pass the cost to customers, so we all pay for fraud we'll never know about. 2,000 identities still in databases, credit reports for ghosts. How do you even clean that up? 15 years each. Restitution they'll never pay. And the money is gone, spent, distributed, disappeared into the economy. Moving on.
I investigate healthcare fraud, Medicare, Medicaid, insurance fraud. It's a multi-billion-dollar problem. Got flagged on a medical billing pattern. Small clinic in Florida. Family practice, routine stuff. But their billing was odd. Huge number of complex procedure codes, way above average for a family practice. They were billing for procedures they weren't equipped to perform. Advanced cardiac tests, specialty consultations, minor surgical procedures, equipment-intensive diagnostics. The clinic had one doctor, 2 examination rooms, basic equipment. No way they were doing these procedures. We audited patient records, requested medical files for billed procedures. Files showed routine visits, basic exams, blood pressure checks. But insurance was billed for complex procedures costing thousands. Doctor was billing for procedures that never happened to patients who didn't know. Here's the scheme. Elderly Medicare patients come in for routine checkup, doctor does basic exam, then bills Medicare for complex diagnostics, cardiac testing, neurological consultations, procedures requiring specialists. Medicare pays automatically. Patients never see bills. Medicare handles it. They have no idea they're being billed for procedures they didn't receive. Over 4 years, $4.7 million in fraudulent billings. We raided the clinic, seized records, interviewed patients. Patients were shocked. One woman was billed for cardiac stress tests she never had. She doesn't even have heart problems. Another was billed for minor surgery. Never happened. He'd come in for a flu shot. Doctor knew elderly Medicare patients don't check their Medicare statements, just exploited that trust completely. Federal charges, Medicare fraud. Each false claim is a separate count. He had thousands. Pleaded guilty to 47 counts, got 22 years federal prison, $4.7 million restitution. Lost his medical license, obviously. Will never practice again. Wife divorced him, said she had no idea. Not sure I believe that, but she wasn't charged. $4.7 million stolen from Medicare, from a system designed to help elderly people. Every dollar he stole came from a program serving vulnerable patients, money that should go to actual health care. And he just billed for procedures he never performed, while patients trusted him with their health.
Billing elderly patients for procedures they never received. procedures they didn't even know about. That's stealing from Medicare, from taxpayers, from a system already strained. The brilliance of it, in a sick way, elderly patients don't read Medicare statements. Medicare pays automatically. Perfect crime. Until pattern analysis catches you, until someone notices a family practice billing like a specialty surgical center. 22 years, $4.7 million in restitution, medical license gone forever. But the money's spent. Medicare won't recover it. And how many other doctors are doing this right now? Small amounts, under the radar. Death by 1,000 fraudulent bills. Next story.
I'm a general contractor, legitimate one. Been in business 30 years. There's a scam going around, fake contractors taking deposits and disappearing. One guy in my area was particularly successful, ran the same con for 2 years before getting caught. Here's how he operated. Professional website, fake reviews, stolen photos of completed projects, business license number that checked out because he'd incorporated legitimately. He'd quote reasonable prices, maybe 10–15% below market. Not suspiciously cheap, just competitive. Required 50% deposit, standard in the industry for materials and scheduling. He'd take the deposit, schedule start date, then delay. Equipment problems, supplier issues, weather, always something. A week of delays, then 2 weeks, then he'd stop responding. By the time homeowners realized they'd been scammed, he'd moved on to the next victims. Over 2 years, he took deposits from 67 homeowners. Total, $890,000. None of the projects started, not one. He'd incorporated under a business name, used a registered agent service, rented a small office he never used, had a VoIP phone number. When homeowners tried to find him, address was a UPS mailbox. Phone went to voicemail, no response. How'd he get caught? Greed. Started hitting the same neighborhoods, multiple people on the same street. They started talking. Realized they'd all hired the same company, all giving deposits, all ghosted. They filed police reports, together, with evidence. Police found him living 1 state over, under his real name, in a house he'd bought with fraud money. Charged with 67 counts of theft by deception, multiple counts of fraud, organized crime enhancements. Judge gave him 14 years. Said he'd systematically victimized working families and destroyed trust in legitimate contractors. Restitution of $890,000. He'll never pay it. Money's gone. Spent on his house, cars, lifestyle. Here's what killed me. Several victims had saved for years for these renovations. One couple used their retirement funds. They took their money knowing he'd never do the work, just collected deposits and disappeared. The victims formed a support group, shared contractor horror stories. Some still haven't finished their projects, can't afford to after losing deposits. As a legitimate contractor, this infuriates me. He made everyone suspicious. Now I have to work twice as hard to prove I'm trustworthy. Homeowners ask for references, want to see licenses, check review sites obsessively, all because guys like him destroyed trust. 14 years, but the damage lasts longer. Those families will never fully recover, and they'll never trust a contractor again.
67 families. $890,000. Not one project started. Taking deposits from people on the same street. That's where greed overtakes caution. The systematic nature of it. Professional website, fake reviews, legitimate incorporation, all the trappings of a real business, just without any intention of actually working. The couple who used retirement funds, years of savings, gone, for a renovation that never started. And the lasting damage, to legitimate contractors, having to prove they're not scammers every single client because one person destroyed trust. 14 years. Money never recovered, and families still living with unfinished projects they can't afford to complete. Last story.
I'm a financial advisor. I help clients with investments, retirement planning, wealth management. Client came to me excited, said she'd met an investment advisor at a networking event. He had an opportunity. Cryptocurrency fund. Guaranteed 15% monthly returns. Minimum investment, $25,000. I immediately said no. Guaranteed returns don't exist. 15% monthly is 180% annually. Impossible legitimately. She said he had credentials. Showed me his business card. Fancy title. Professional website. LinkedIn profile with 500 plus connections. I researched him. Everything looked legitimate on the surface, but I couldn't find the fund registered anywhere. Told her it's likely a scam. She got defensive, said I was jealous that I couldn't offer returns like that. She invested $50,000 against my advice. For 3 months, she got statements. Her $50,000 was now $72,000, 15% monthly growth, exactly as promised. She showed me professionally formatted statements, performance charts, everything looked real. I said, try to withdraw it. She contacted him, said she wanted to take out $20,000. Suddenly, there were withdrawal fees, processing delays, penalties for early withdrawal, tax implications she needed to cover first. Each excuse required sending more money. She sent $5,000 for processing fees, then $3,000 for tax clearance. I begged her to stop. She said it was normal. The advisor explained everything. Then he disappeared. Website went dark, phone disconnected, LinkedIn profile deleted. Office address was a co-working space he'd rented monthly. She'd lost $58,000 total. The statements were fiction. The returns never existed. The entire fund was imaginary. We filed reports. FBI, SEC, state securities regulators. Turned out, dozens of people were scammed. Total losses over $2 million. The advisor had several identities, run this scam in multiple cities, new name each time. They never caught him. He's still out there, probably running the same scam somewhere else. My client was devastated. That $58,000 was her late husband's life insurance, everything she had. She blamed me initially, said I should have stopped her harder. I said I tried. She chose not to listen. Eventually, she understood, but the money's gone. She's 73, working part-time to survive. And that scammer is somewhere right now promising someone else guaranteed returns, ruining another life.
$58,000. Her husband's life insurance. Everything she had. Gone. For returns that never existed. For a fund that was fiction. For a person who wasn't real. The professional website, the LinkedIn profile, the business cards. All props, all theater, all designed to look legitimate. And it worked for months. Those fake statements showing growth, 15% monthly, creating belief, creating trust. Then the withdrawal fees, the processing costs, the tax clearance. Classic scam escalation, each barrier requiring more money. The financial advisor warned her explicitly with evidence, and she didn't listen because the returns looked good. She's 73 years old, working part-time because she trusted someone offering impossible returns. And he's still out there, new city, new name, Same scam, finding new victims. Let me wrap this up. So those were 11 stories about scams that almost worked, or did work, until they didn't. Insurance fraud, fake charities, romance scams, property theft, resume fabrication, estate fraud, grant fraud, synthetic identities, medical billing, contractor cons, investment schemes. What strikes me is the sophistication. These weren't Nigerian prince emails. These were elaborate, well-planned operations. Professional websites, fake credentials, forged documents, created identities, years of setup for the con. Some of these people made millions for years before getting caught. The fake contractor? 2 years, 67 victims, $900,000. The inheritance thief? 2 years of probate, $2.1 million stolen from his own family. The romance scammer? Still out there, never caught, ruining lives continuously. And in almost every case, the money's gone, spent, disappeared. Victims never recover. Restitution orders are meaningless when the scammer has nothing to seize. Here's what these stories teach. If it seems too good to be true, it is. Guaranteed 15% monthly returns, below market prices with no catch, perfect credentials appearing from nowhere. Verify everything, independently. Don't trust websites. Don't trust references provided by the person. Don't trust that professional appearance means legitimacy. Ask questions. Why is this deal available to me? Why are they rushing? Why do they need money up front? And listen to the people who warn you. The financial advisor saying it's a scam. The attorney noticing irregularities. The daughter reverse image searching photos. These scammers count on trust, on people wanting to believe, on greed, or loneliness, or desperation overriding caution. The romance scammer targeted lonely widows. The contractor targeted families who saved for years. The investment fraud targeted retirees. Vulnerabilities. They find them. They exploit them. They destroy lives. If you enjoyed these stories, or if they made you more cautious, hit like, subscribe for more, and share your own close calls or scam encounters in the comments. But more importantly, protect yourself. Verify. Question. Don't rush into anything involving money. And if someone's pressuring you to act quickly, to not tell anyone, to trust them completely, that's when you run. Scammers are sophisticated, but they rely on you not asking questions. Ask questions every time. Thanks for watching. Stay skeptical, stay safe. See you next time.